What's up, everyone? I'm Don Harkins with Don Harkins Realty. It's August 2024. There's a lot of changes happening in real estate. We've got interest rates on the move. There's some crazy headlines about the realtor commission lawsuit and how that's going to change the way buyers purchase and sellers sell homes. There's an election coming up, which could have an impact on the market. We're going to look at inventory and home prices. This is going to be a wrap up to bring you up to speed and shed some light on what's happening in the overall real estate market. So to start off, let's look at this headline that came out today. It says, Florida real estate agents brace for a major shift in the way they do business. What's interesting is this major shift that this article that came out today is talking about actually went into effect 10 days ago in our market. But nonetheless, let's look at this major shift in the way they do business. It says two of the biggest changes, which, by the way, it's the only changes there's two, and they don't mention any others. Agents no longer being allowed to advertise commissions when posting a home to the multiple listing service. It doesn't say agents no longer charging commissions, advertising commissions, sharing commissions, co-brokering commissions, getting paid differently, just no longer being allowed to advertise when posting homes to the multiple listing service. This is just bizarre. You'll notice that there's going to be really no change in the market. It's just removing transparency from the market. And I'm going to show you who's behind this and what their motivations were in just a second. But what's the second major shift in the way they do business? Buyers will also have to sign a written agreement with their agent outlining how much they will get paid. Guys, this has been going on since I got into real estate in 2011. Agents should always be entering into a written agreement outlining how much they're going to get paid. A consumer should know how much they're being charged for the services being provided to them. So no real change here other than this is becoming mandatory, but professional agents have always done this. They've always disclosed how much they're going to get paid. The only change is that the National Association of Realtors and the local MLSs are saying you need to do this before you start showing homes to a buyer. That's always been good practice. Anyone who's done a buyer consultation ever has done this and knows that this is kind of standard practice. But nonetheless, why are we having these changes? Well, there was a lawsuit, and this firm representing the Sitzer Burnett plaintiffs in Missouri filed a lawsuit, and they said, we didn't know that we were paying a buyer's agent. And as a seller, a home seller, we didn't want to pay a buyer's agent. And that was unfair to us, so we should be compensated because we were forced to pay a buyer's agent. We didn't want to do that. What's interesting, this was a $450 million settlement. And interestingly enough, the attorneys are asking for $82.4 million of that settlement. This is going to leave the home sellers that were in the large class that these attorneys assembled with virtually nothing in terms of any sort of settlement or payment or rebate. This works out to be about 39.5% of the total settlement payout, 40% of the total settlement payout going just to the attorneys that litigated this. So this was 100% a money grab under the guise of protecting sellers and giving sellers more choice over how they list homes. Instead, it's a 40% of the settlement money grab for the attorneys, which has resulted in less transparency to buyers and sellers in the marketplace. They can no longer see via the MLS how much competing home sellers are paying buyers agents, and buyers can no longer see how much their real estate agents are making without asking them. It's absolutely bizarre. And why do sellers pay the buyer's broker? Why is business done that way? I'm going to show you the benefit and why this is the way historically business has been done. Let's take a sale price of $500,000. The way it's always worked is a buyer has a 3% down payment, first-time home buyer. He's got closing costs of 3%. It's going to cost him $30,000 to buy this home. The seller has closing costs too. They have 1.5% closing costs roughly. They pay 3% to a listing broker that's representing them. And then they typically pay 3% to a buyer's broker, which leaves them with a net of $462,500 roughly in this scenario. Now, let's look at the way that these attorneys who just made 40% of the class settlement in their own fees and they think the realtor commissions are too much. Let's look at the way that they think business should be done. They think a seller should not have to pay for the buyer's agent. They say the buyer should pay for the buyer's agent, and the seller shouldn't have to pay the buyer agent. It's not in the seller's best interest. So in this case, the buyer has 3% down. The seller can list a price for less because their closing costs are less, right? The seller doesn't have that 3% buyer agent commission anymore, right? So the sale price is now $485 instead of $500. The buyer has their 3% down payment. They have their 3% closing costs, and they have their 3% buyer agent fee. Their new cost to purchase a home, thanks to these attorneys representing sellers, the new cost to purchase a home, or the way they want the cost to purchase a home to be, is $43,650 to the buyer, or 45.5% more expensive, right? When the seller doesn't pay the buyer's broker fee, it costs a buyer 45.5% more to purchase a home, which is, by the way, 3% cheaper than the other home, right? The seller pays 1.5% closing costs in this example. The seller pays 3% to a listing broker. They net $463,175 instead of netting $462,500. The seller makes 0.146% more doing business this way. They make their house 45% more expensive to net 0.146% more. This is ludicrous. The fact that sellers claim that they were taken advantage of and misled because they had to pay a buyer's broker when they listed their home is absolutely ludicrous. Can you imagine a restaurant doing this? You go to Outback Steakhouse, it costs you $100 for a meal for 2 people. Next time you go in, it costs you $150 for the same exact meal a couple weeks later. For the restaurant to make 0.146% more, or an airline doing this, raising prices on their customers 45% to make an extra 0.14%, or a technology company like Apple making the iPhone 50% more expensive so they can make an extra 0.14%. It's a horrible way to do business. No one would ever do this in the real world. And the fact that the attorneys, specifically the attorney Michael Ketchmark, who was the lead attorney representing the plaintiffs in this case, the fact that they said, and by the way, he's saying here, if there's additional money that's collected by way of a judgment or additional settlements, they want to make an additional fee application. They want to make more money, more than the 40% of the $450 million. But this is the way that, thanks to these great attorneys that filed this lawsuit in Missouri, thanks to them, now there's no more transparency of what the advertised buyer commission is, and they are encouraging sellers to make their home 45% more expensive so they can make 0.14% more money on the sale, right? The reason that we recommend to sellers and we sit down and meet with them that they offer a buyer's broker commission is because we're saying, look, you can make the same amount of money, but you can make your house 45% cheaper, which means a lot more buyers can afford it, which means more showings, which means more offers, which means a higher net sale price to you. So moving forward, when you hear headlines or you see things about commissions are changing, you no longer have to pay a buyer's agent, remember, realtors are almost always acting in the best interest of their customers. The reason that a realtor is recommending that you pay a buyer's agent when you sell your house is because that's how you make the most amount of money. That's how you make your house the cheapest for buyers to purchase. So moving on, we're going to switch gears a little bit. Really interesting article, really interesting tool, Mashvisor. They did a survey, the top 100 short-term rental markets in the country. Orlando, Kissimmee, they call it, coming in at number 54. This is crazy. They're saying that the average short-term rental cash-on-cash return, 6.5%, not bad. Short-term rental cap rate, 6.5%. Daily rental rate, about $207. Short-term rental occupancy rate, 50%. I've been told that you can actually achieve occupancy rates in short-term rentals by short-term vacation management companies of a lot closer to 75%, 80% on a ongoing basis, as long as you're using dynamic pricing and adjusting your daily rates appropriately. Median property price for a short-term rental, $437,229, but Orlando coming in at number 54. I found that surprising. If we look at some of the top markets. A little bit surprising. Columbia, Irondale, Evansville, Adelphi, Kansas City, Peoria, Columbus, Keys Rock, Springfield. I mean, we've never really heard of a lot of these cities in terms of being big real estate markets. Old Hickory, Tennessee, Erie, Pennsylvania, Fairmount Heights. So anyways, it's a really cool list. Mashvisor is a great tool if you're considering short-term rental investment. So consider checking that out or let us know if you're interested. Moving on to interest rates. So you can see here back in April 2022, we had a fixed rate on the index of about 7.4%. Moving to today, we're at about 6.5%, so almost a full percent lower. We are up. You can see where we closed last week and on Friday and opened on Monday at 6.3 or 6.4. We're up a little bit this week by about 0.2%. The reason we're up, if you look at the economic calendar, we had core CPI came in a little bit. It came in at expectations, but it was up over the previous month. So that kind of sent rates higher. And then we also had retail sales projected at 0.3% increase, came in at 1% higher, mainly due to auto sales rebounding and spiking. So that sent rates a little bit higher. And then July building permits, this was sort of deflationary news. They were up 3.9% in the previous month, but down 4% when the reading came out today. So builders sort of pumping the brakes a little bit on new permits in the month of July. So where we're at with rates today, you can see 6.56% on a 30-year fixed. FHA getting a pretty good discount still at 6.1%. VA, same thing, 6.12%. Again, the ARMs, people like to talk about the ARMs. Let's go into an adjustable rate. We'll refinance when rates come down. The pricing just isn't that good on them. It hasn't been that good on them for a long time. So 15-year fixed, FHA, VA, still where the bargains are, but the 30-year fixed still down meaningfully since April and probably hitting a ceiling of resistance here around the 6.5 number. Moving on to real estate prices and real estate inventory. Looking at our 5-year average, July, in terms of the number of closed sales, we're right where we'd expect to be. The number of new pendings, again, we're kind of right where we'd expect to be. Active listings are up well above the average, and we're seeing a lot of talk about this in the news. You see months of supply. Well, this is way up. One thing that is not being accounted for here is when we go and we look at these new listings, let's say we take a look at the last 90 days and let's look at the type of homes that are being listed. If we look, let's pick a random county here. We'll say just Orange County and just show us single family homes that are listed in the last 90 days. We've got 2,099 homes listed in the last 90 days. If we look at the number that are new construction, 276. So more than 10%, well over 10% of the homes that are listed right now are actually new construction or to be built homes. So that's what is getting lost in the news is a lot of what we're seeing as new inventory, new home listings. You're kind of scanning these portals like Zillow and Redfin and saying, well, look how many homes are listed for sale. A lot of them are unmotivated sellers that are priced really high or really far out of the market. A lot of them are new construction homes that may not even be actual addresses or real houses. It's just a lead magnet that's being floated out there to make the phone ring for the builder. So don't get scared off by these inventory numbers. We can continue to look and we can see that in terms of sale price to list price ratios, we're still fairly high at the 95% range. Average days on market still well below pre-pandemic numbers at 55 days. Median days on market even lower. Half the homes are selling in less than 32 days. So generally speaking, average sale price to list price ratio, we're running still higher. Average list price per square foot, still kind of at the top end of that 5-year range. So still decently healthy. When you look at the year-to-date number, we're up plus 0.18% overall. So been a little bit cooler. What's going to happen is you'll see as we reach critical mass on this interest rate coming down, That's going to bring buyers back into the market. They're going to absorb some of that excess supply, sending prices back through the roof. So if you are thinking about a move sometime in the next 12, 18, or 24 months, it might make sense to get ahead of that increase in demand. Go ahead and start looking at homes today, figuring out what's going to be the right house for you. Secure it with a contract, get into a loan. Don't overinvest in the loan. Don't pay too many points. Kind of get comfortable in that loan and sit and wait for rates to hopefully fall, as they oftentimes do from July to November in an election year. And then as home prices start to climb, as they often do, 8 out of 11 of the last year election cycles, home prices rose in the year after the election. Well, you don't have to worry about prices rising and rushing to get into a house and competing with increased buyer demand because interest rates are low. You've already got your house. You're already moved in. It's all good. You just wait and pick a good spot to refinance. Might be a more comfortable, easygoing strategy before we see hysteria of waiving inspection periods again and appraisal gap clauses and escalation clauses all creeping back into the market. So that's where the market is at as a whole. We'll continue to give you more updates as things change. If you have any questions about what your home is worth, about purchasing a new home and what that looks like, if you'd like to get pre-approved for a new mortgage, or if you have a rental home that you'd like to get professional property management for, give us a call or send us a message online. And please be sure to like and subscribe. Share this video with anybody you know who might be interested. I'm Don Harkins with Don Harkins Realty. Thanks for watching.